My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Carl Bahner. He's a mixing engineer, teacher, ADHDer, and today we're unpacking concepts about ADHD, getting distracted multiple times in the conversation, and AI, and the implications of like self-branding and marketing. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Carl Bahner. I mean, I don't know if you've dealt with panic or anxiety. I thought that I had until I had a real panic. And then, I mean, it was months of just months and months and months and trying different things. And it really came down to being untreated ADHD, needing to be able to take everything and control it and keep it organized and then not being able to. And that persistent stress, it just turned into my body feeling out of control.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause I've had, I've been on anxiety meds for a long time, like maybe 10 years now, 11 years
Okay.
now. And like anxiety and depression. And I don't think I ever had a panic attack explicitly. But I have gone, like I've talked about this, publicly before, but like I went inpatient for a week back in, this is I think it was 2015. When I was just like, I lost it, and I don't know if we're gonna have to do like a trigger warning or anything in here, but like, thankfully I didn't like try anything, but I definitely was ready to, and that's why I kind of like checked myself in for
Yeah.
like 6 days, and ever since then, like I felt like that was just kind of a lifelong something, so it's something kind of just always bubbling under the surface, and then it kind of came to a head then, and ever since then it has been a struggle trying to figure out how to manage it, how to develop the skills to cope with it. And then kind of what brought us to talking about this before we hit record was the fact that I just got diagnosed with ADHD like not even 3 months ago, and I just turned 40, so like this is that was a long life lived with ADHD without knowing I have ADHD. And it was, literally a surprise to pretty much nobody that's ever spent more than 3 seconds with me, but it took me by surprise. And having that, and, being on medicine for it now for a couple months and trying to figure out the timing of things, and when do I take it? How early should I take it? How late should I take it? What kind of other skills do I need to be able to develop to not only, work better while the medicine's active, but also work better when the medicine's not active? And how do I balance how this is affecting my personality and the way that I interact with my family? And, I have two kids, one of which is I have an almost 9-year-old who has ADHD, who we found out about her before we found out about me. So like I was already learning a lot of these things like secondhand, like I was learning a lot of how to help her. And that was also kind of preparing me, I guess, unknowingly, to be able to cope with the ADHD struggles, but then also made me much more conscious of my own brain, and was like, oh, all these things that they're saying about my daughter, that sounds kind of familiar. So, and now we have a third on the way coming in August. So there's just a lot of the anxiety and pressure and all of that is bubbling up, and I have been struggling to get it together still, trying my best, but.
So what was the first indicator let me start off by saying, just for complete clarity, if this is the first time people have heard me talk about it as well, but I also have ADHD and I'm autistic, so I'm on the spectrum. So I'm dealing with kind of this weird battle between two different factors of the way that my brain works. And it's been an interesting thing for me to deep dive and analyze and try to figure out. But I'm curious from your end, what were the main things about your brain that made you say, oh, wait, maybe this is me too? And then how has that been affecting you since that diagnosis?
I think the big, there are the obvious kind of basic signals, like having difficulty focusing. And then when I am focusing, I'm hyper focused on, you know, on X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. And the I don't want to say I don't know if selective forgetfulness is a way to describe it, but it's like the things that I'm like really focused on, I can remember every tiny little nerdy detail. But for other stuff, it just like goes in one ear, not the other. And looking back, music was always the thing that I just always cared about, and I remembered every little thing about it. And probably a lot of people listening to this episode right now, if you have, well, I mean, if you're listening to this episode and you're doing music, you're probably neurospicy in some way, shape, or form. But I feel like, you probably had that sense when you were younger that like if it was something with music, you put all of your energy into it, and everything else was kind of just, you know, secondary. So I know for myself, it was in a way, I'm glad I wasn't diagnosed with it. This might sound weird, but I think like I'm kind of glad I wasn't diagnosed with it until later in life, despite all of the difficulties. But at least it did. I got lucky that my focus and that the things that I was really drawn to and really passionate about was something that I was able to turn into a very interesting and fun career. So at least I didn't snuff out that spark too young.
Had you been diagnosed, would you have used it as an excuse to not succeed? And are you at a risk of subconsciously entertaining that same kind of like, I don't know, mechanism now?
Yeah. Oh no, I feel it for sure. Like I catch myself sometimes thinking just like, oh, it's just my ADHD that's making it hard. And I think it's like it's an interesting predicament when you have a kid that has ADHD, because like, we're trying to, if we can avoid her being on meds for it, we want to avoid her being on meds for it, because I think, she's 8, like she's too young to be there's a lot of things that could get rewired, and I'm obviously not a medical professional. I'm going to use just like very bland terminology, but like, I think we'd rather try to help her to develop the skills. Cause I think one of the things that helped me is the fact that I was, at least up until our second daughter was born, I was a pretty high functioning ADHDer. Cause I had to figure it out and I had to survive. And I think having those skills before I got into the medicine, I think is helping making the medicine more effective, because I'm not using just the medicine as the crutch. So that said, going back to, almost blaming the ADHD as, as the reason for some issues, I think that's the difficult balance, is trying to, be more patient and understanding and forgiving to my daughter, and thinking to myself, okay, like she has ADHD, like this is not her just like being spiteful or being like, ignoring me on purpose, or, like disregarding me or disrespecting me. It's like, no, that's just like how her brain works. So it's hard for me to like have that passionate, like understanding and forgiveness and patience for her without, as a parent, without letting that become like excusing her for things. But then also for myself, it's hard not to show, I want to show myself that same compassion, but I don't want to show myself too much of that same compassion. It's it's a weird balance that I'm very new to and still trying to figure it out.
How have you done, how have you been able to show yourself compassion for moments of depression and anxiety, or have you? Like, has that been a struggle too?
It's a struggle, and like I'm my own harshest critic. Like I get very disappointed in myself for not accomplishing the things that I set out to accomplish. Especially if the reason I don't accomplish them is because of my own inaction or my own uninformed action, I guess, like whether I'm not doing something that I should be doing, or I'm doing something without like really thinking it through. Like I do get very upset at myself, and I think, it's again one of those things where there's a fine line between, having that as a way to push yourself and to grow, which I think for a lot of my life, like that was what helped to keep me driven and to keep me pushing and to grow and work harder than most other people and to, ask deeper questions than most people and really strive and like really put in like the hard, like the hard, I said the hard time. I don't mean like jail time. I mean like the hard, like
Yeah.
the hard effort and like self-reflection to be able to really push my business and really grow and like make some really great art and like make some really great connections and build these relationships. And like all of those things, I think were because to some degree I had that like that drive, but there's a balance between, there's a fine line between when it's like a really incredible drive versus like an unhealthy redirection of energy. And I feel like I've always been a little bit like really on the edge. And then, in later years, especially as, we had a kid and then we had a second kid and like well, we had a kid and then COVID hit and then we had another kid and then now, we have another on the way. It's like I felt myself kind of losing my grip that I had on the drive side and getting a little bit more pulled over towards the like unhealthy, uh, I don't want to call it depression because I have had depression for a long time and it's a bit different than that, but it is a level of just this self, I don't know, self disappointment. It's like I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, but like at myself.
Yeah.
I
don't know if this
I
resonates.
think that is something that a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people have feel that too. Where they set these goals and then they feel like a failure if they don't meet them. But sometimes it's out of their control, and sometimes it is in their control.
Yep.
But they get so down on themselves that they don't take the steps to actually learn from that and move forward.
I feel like I hear you, and a lot of what you're saying resonates in having like a tremendous amount of drive and crazy hyper focusing capacity, and I can move forward and dream and do all of this stuff. And I want to be cautious in what I'm about to say because it could be translated wrong, especially to my kids. My kids are a gift to my life, and I love them so much, and having them around. And also, a lot of times I work from home, and so when they're around, I felt myself getting pulled, and I still do at times, like getting pulled to like, well, if they're home and I'm home, I can't work from home, and I feel guilty. And so if I'm hyper focusing and they interrupt me, I have more of a tendency to like be snappy or be aggravated at myself, and it might come out at them and have to apologize, or it might come out like, or I just quit and I just don't do anything because of this, like not being able to give myself the grace to actually work like a normal, quote unquote, normal person would at a job.
Yeah.
I know that the kids were like, brought a magnifying glass to my own neurodiversity big time, and how I was not kind to myself, causing the depression and the anxiety eventually for me too. And like having to work through that to be like, what in the world's going on? Like, what can I learn about the way that my brain functions, and how can I, be there for my kids as much as I'm able to be without having unrealistic expectations of myself of what I'm supposed to do as a parent, and still champion myself, and in a way that I can set an example for them, not to add too much pressure on myself, but like, but give an example to them of a parent that can lovingly work, apologize when he messes up, and then be as nice to myself as I can be. I'm still very much learning a lot of this stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you could tell. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a video component to this. I'm assuming there is, but like anybody just listening to this, you should have just imagine somebody making the most aggressively agreeing grimace face, because like everything you were saying was just like that's me. Like it's a blessing and a curse to be able to work from home. It's a blessing and a curse to be able to like see the kids every day, And sometimes it feels more like a blessing. Sometimes it feels more like a curse.
Yeah.
um, and it's hard. And especially I think with the ADHD, and this is something that I feel like, we all as musicians and as engineers and producers, we talk about, like, the flow state. There's my daughter's screaming in the background right now. Like getting in the flow state and like really being in the zone. And I feel like one of the harder things is, once you're in the zone, if you get pulled out of it, it takes you, I'm pulling numbers out of my butt, but like it takes, 30 minutes to get into the flow, and then it takes 3 seconds to get out of it. And when you're
Yep.
working from home and you have the kids, and then all of that is also, the just even more exaggerated by the ADHD, making it easier for you to be distracted and therefore easier for you to get out of the flow. Like, it can really just it wears on you, and that's
Yep.
one of the things what I was saying about like trying to figure out the timing of the medicine, and like when is the best time for me to take 'cause I'm on Adderall. I don't mind talking about this
Yeah.
stuff, but like, um,
Yeah.
it's like the extended release. So it's like, is it like, when during my day do I need not the most focus? Like, I'm studying to like write my doctoral dissertation, like it's like, well, when am I most likely to be distracted and pulled out of the flow so that I can get back into it sooner? And like trying to, manage my medicine around that,
Yeah.
which is just a whole mind fuck. What I have found is that when it wears off, if I don't take it at the right time of day, it happens to coincide, like the crash coincides with when my kids are at their fucking worst. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here or not, but like,
Yes. Yeah.
that's, yes. And so it's like usually, but my wife and I, we refer to it as them turning back into pumpkins. It's kind of like at Cinderella, when it strikes midnight, all of the all the magic wears off, and they all turn back into their, you know,
At
their
the same
pumpkin form.
at the same time that all of your capacity just gets sucked away because you're
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was one of the struggles too, and when the medicine was when I first started taking it, like almost 3 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago, I felt like this instant change, like right away when it kicked in. I was like, oh my God, like this is what normal people, like
Mm,
this is how normal
good.
people, walk through the day. But then when it was like wearing off right at the same time as, they were both, falling apart, and then, my wife being pregnant, and like her her nerves were worn thin too. So then it's just like, not only not only was it normally going to be bad at that time of day, but it felt like this weird thing where during the day it was, I haven't watched Severance yet, but I've
Oh,
my understanding.
you
What?
have to. You have to. It's
Okay.
so good. Yeah.
So what the little that I know is that the whole concept is that it's like almost like you have a different life at work versus at home, right? That's kind of what the medicine felt like for me at first, where it was like when I was on it, it was like I felt like a totally different person. I was like up here in my
Mm,
office or like at the studio, and I was just like going, and I was like feeling great, and I was like getting so much like done. And it wasn't that I was just getting a lot done. I was just like I was better able to prioritize instead of just feeling like the gazillion different things that I could be doing for my business, and like finding the ones I actually should be focusing on. And then like 4:30, 5 o'clock hit, and all of a sudden it was just like the I I'm mixing metaphors with different TV shows, but it was like all of a sudden like the light switch, and I went into the Upside Down from Stranger Things. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that's that's what it felt like. And trying to, there's like the mental gymnastics of not just trying to be able to like emotionally and mentally survive that and like get through it, but also trying to figure out, okay, well, what are the things that I need to do for my life, that I need to do for my business, and like what times of day are going to be the best for me to be able to do that based on how much focus and how likely I am to be interrupted. And then on top of that, when you realize, oh, like my whole life, I was naturally like a night owl and up late all the time. Like there was a time when my wife was just out of nursing school, and she was working night shift. And she was doing 3 12-hour days, 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. And this was before we had kids. And at that time, like I was just gigging at night and I was teaching some drum lessons, but like I didn't teach until after school. So my first responsibility at the earliest was like 3:30 in the afternoon. So I would just, on the day she worked, I would just like stay up till 6 a.m. And then I sometimes fall asleep before she got home, but then like sometimes I'd stay up until she got home at like 8 o'clock, go to sleep, and then I'd wake up and, wake up at 2:30, 2:45, hop in the shower, get clothes on, go teach lessons. And that was totally normal. And then now, my almost 2-year-old wakes me up at 5:45, 6 o'clock every day. So now it's like, okay, well, I have to be, I'm forced into the life of being a morning person. The times when I'm usually the most creative are not an option for me right now. And then now it's like taking that, trying to spend the past 9 years trying to adapt my own life and my own brain to be able to survive that and like work around that. And now throwing in the medicine, and that's recalibrating everything. So that's been such a journey would be a euphemism to say. Trying to just figure out when does my brain do things more gooder than other times.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge question. I worked with my therapist for a while because talking about the fact that once it's nighttime, no one interrupts me. I have permission to have that unrestricted, deep work that I can just dive into. And thankfully, in our family situation, it has worked out that Carrie, my wife, has been able to take the kids to school in the morning, and I get to sleep late. So I like this is the first thing that I did. I had to wake up a little early to have our meeting at 1:30 your time. Because I am like I'm up till 3 or 4 typically. Like I'd say like 3:30 is probably my average bedtime right now, because it allows me to be hyper effective. From specifically like 10 to 2:30 a.m., like 10 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. like is my I'm rallying, but because I just carried so much guilt in not being successful over and over and over and over and over at, like I do prioritize my sleep and make sure I get 8 hours of sleep almost always. Last night was 7 hours, but like it's still a pretty good amount of sleep. My diet, the exercise, like I try to do a really good job with all that stuff. And I was just still constantly struggling. And, she was like, okay, so are you better off like fighting the fact that you work really well at night or like, um, but anyway, I get the battle too. It's like, especially we're heading into summer. This is the last week of school. Like, am I going to sleep until noon or 1 every day, even when the kids are home? Like, how do I make that all work? And then is they're staying up later because now they don't have school in the morning or something? It's like, how is that going to impact my work day? For a while, I was waking up at 4:45 every morning, and I loved it. But then same thing, my 2-year-old at the time was walking in at 5 and being like, "Good morning." You're like, this is when I work. Like nobody wakes up this early. I'm the one that has my alone time.
Yeah. There's only enough there's only enough space for one weirdo in this house, and that's
exactly
gonna be me.
Yeah, exactly. But then like going back to the guilt thing, like feeling guilty about him like interrupting quote unquote my time instead of this awesome time that we get together, especially being at the house, and then you throw COVID into the mix, and anyway, it's like all this complexity that is interesting.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Like I don't know how anyone does it. I don't know how I do it. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how anyone does it. Especially when we're in this weirdly like this very unusual career, right? This very unusual industry where, we are not able to clock in and clock out mentally, like even if we wanted to, because I feel like that's, I think because we don't want to, if we wanted something to clock, I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but
yeah, I think it's awesome. The timing is so perfect though for the content of the episode.
Yeah, keep that in. This is the first time it's like, please keep in all the baby screams. At least the mailman hasn't come and the dog's not losing her fucking mind. But what was I? Oh no, what was I saying? I was saying about how the.
I
See,
love
this
that.
is
I
okay.
was
You know what?
truly listening, and then okay.
This is it. This is it. I'm so glad that this happened in real time. That I talking about, being in the flow, getting distracted. I'm here. Like I'm on a podcast, being interviewed for a podcast. I've been really excited about it. You and I have been talking about trying to do one for years at this point, and it just like never worked out for different reasons. And now we're finally here, and like bearing my soul about the struggles of the various neurospiciness things in our lives, and then I hear a blood curdling scream of someone who probably just wants a different sock on, and now I don't remember what I was going to say. And this is the point. Like this is it. So if you don't have kids and you don't have ADHD, you probably would have turned off already. But if you're here, like you've been here, you know this.
Seriously.
Yeah.
What?
So, I mean, it was probably very smart. It was very, very wise and intelligent and would have changed the world if I would have, finished my thought. But oh well.
I was talking about a schedule thing, and then my son waking up early, and then you were going to say something.
Oh, you know what? I might have been, I was thinking about how it also gets harder at different developmental stages too.
Yes.
And I think, she's right. But the two big fun parts is that number one, she is really going through the terrible twos a little bit early. She's just like a little ass some days.
Yeah.
I love her dearly, but good Lord. And also very recently, she learned how to open doors. So she's also a little monster that's able to escape. So that's always fun. So I think that changes too. I think the things you worry about as a parent changes as they grow, but then also the ways that they, the ways that their interactions and the ways that their actions affect you change quite a bit too.
Yeah. And I want to clarify too, my like nighttime schedule would not have been possible at the same level when our kids were preschool age. This corresponds well in school time. Like I can go get them from school in the afternoon and help in the, like hang out with the family and be present during family time. And then once everybody's going to bed, that's when I start my work, But when it's 2-year-olds screaming because of the sock, it's like, you can't do that, Part of my neurodiversity stuff is I'm super sensitive to sound. So like it's like a physiological response when there's sound that might have an impact or something that I need to care about. Now I could be in a loud coffee shop, especially with headphones on, and be fine because there's so much chaos and noise that I know I don't have to care about. But if there's one, like somebody walks into the kitchen and fills their cup up, I'm like, are they going to open the door and like ask me a question or not? And, and I'm constantly derailed with these exogenous sounds that like, again, it's like a physiological feeling that I get when there's a sound that I might care about. So like I can get startled easily. And then so you throw in all that with kids and working from home and all this stuff. It's funny. But
yeah, and I think that's going back to the whole idea of, the ADHD and things like being your superpower. I feel like that's probably one of the things that makes you a great engineer, great producer, because of the attention to detail and noticing things that most people don't. But then it's like the blessing and the curse. Like when you're trying to use those skills, use that and like focus it towards the music, it makes you unstoppable. But it's kind of like, this is like X-Men versus DC Comics for a second. Bear with me. But I think it's like the difference between Cyclops from X-Men and Superman. Like they both have like the laser vision, but Cyclops can't control it himself. He can only control it with the glasses. Superman can use it when he wants to and turn it off when he wants to. And I think that's where we're more like Cyclops in a way. Like we can't control it, and the thing is we don't always have our special goggles.
Yep.
if that makes any sense
No, no,
at
I
all.
think I think it's true. And just chemically speaking, we're constantly seeking novelty and excitement and something
Yeah.
new. And from my end, the film company's been like the baseline of my background is 20 years of running the film company. And the reason that I've been able to do it for so long is that films are always so damn different. It makes it so that, like, every project has a different message and a different scene and different people to talk about and different everything. And music is so the same too. Like, you can get into a rut, obviously, like, but if you allow yourself to, like, breathe and have fun and be open to it, like, the novelty, I think, is a win. Which brings me up to, or I guess brings me to a question for the listeners now too, like, talking about you, what you do, and what you're excited about moving forward. But I also want to emphasize that from my perspective on the outside, what I've seen of your content is you're very good at being persistent on your message and saying the same thing consistently in different ways to people, which is a very healthy. Like, I know this from a marketing background. Like, having that frequency trains people to know what to think and how to feel and stuff. So how do you have that, and then what are you excited, like, why are you doing that? How are you doing it? And what excites you about what's coming up?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I I think the reason that I find it so important to explain, well, a little context. So what I talk about a lot, I guess we kind of skipped the whole who is this guy? Who is this
Yeah.
guy in the Hanson hat part of the episode? But so
You know
my name's
what?
Carl
I'm going to
Bahner.
cut this part and I'm going to put it I'm going to put it back in the beginning. And I'm just going to reference the fact that we talked about this later, but go ahead. Yeah, you are.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Carl Bahner. I am a mixing engineer and educator. And I love how we're recording the intro like halfway through the episode, and we're just gonna. I'm breaking the fourth
It's
wall.
an
I'm letting
ADHD
people know that
episode,
we
man.
kind of,
We got to rally. Like,
yeah. If oh my god,
good.
yeah. I mean, like,
Good.
I think honestly, you shouldn't move this. I think you should just like record a quick little intro for the beginning to tee it up.
Yeah.
And then when they get here, it's gonna feel like it's gonna feel so perfect because this
It
is
is. It is
how
already
it this is
perfect.
how it happened. So I've been professional music noise maker for a little over 20 years now, and I started out as a session drummer and gigging drummer. Gradually found myself doing much more production and mixing. Started really focusing down onto mixing, and then uh, the whole time I've been an educator. Like I've been teaching in some way, shape, or form pretty much since as long as I can remember. Like I remember like I remember being in like ninth grade, like giving other students in the concert band lessons on like how to play their parts. Like that's just always been something that I've wanted to do. Something that's been a really very big part of who I am. And when COVID hit, but before COVID hit, I was already about like half, like 50-50 remote as a mixing engineer. And when COVID hit and everybody became remote. I had the best year that I'd ever had up until that point. Like I saw so many of my friends and my peers who had, way more skills than me, way bigger credits than me, way bigger networks than me, living in music cities. When I'm living in, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in Amish country, and I saw them all like really struggling to get clients and to, stay, afloat. But I ended up doing over 300 mixes that year. And it wasn't because I was any better than them. It wasn't because I had, I was a better mixer. It wasn't because I had all of these network connections that I pulled a bunch of favors or anything. It was just that I was very particular about how I present myself online and how I go way out of my way to start conversations and build those relationships. So that was something that I learned. I didn't learn it because I thought, oh, it's COVID, I got to figure this shit out now. That was just always part of how I was, whether I was a drummer in Philly, which was not a big music scene, always trying to get live gigs and session work when there's not really a lot to go around. So I had to be very proactive about it, to when I was, doing mixing and production, and I was always trying to meet new people and make those connections. So like, it wasn't that I suddenly tried something new. It was just all those things that I had been doing, all the skills I had been learning suddenly became way more important in the situation. So the reason I'm kind of like saying all this is that it's to get up to, what I'm excited about, but also like why I teach the things that I teach and why I teach it the way that I do. So I ended up starting to just help my friends and peers with their social media and their branding, not necessarily with the goal of going viral, because that's like just dumb for us for what we do, because of the weird quirky nuances of what we do and who we're trying to attract. But I was just trying to help them to better communicate the uniqueness that they have, like the quirks about them that their best clients love about them, and how to just present that to people that don't know them yet. So that way they see those quirks, they see those awesome things, and they make them feel compelled to reach out. Like, it's pretty straightforward, but I started like realizing how that was really the thing that made 2020 and 2021 and like kind of on and on and on like so much better for me, was because of that attention to the messaging and attention to just the self-awareness and like the self-questioning of what is it about me that my favorite clients like, and how can I present that to the world? So kind of like taking all of that as like the setup, and going back to the question that you had of, well, why do I, or how did I get, good at teaching or like saying the same thing in a bunch of different ways to try to like help get it to click for people? It comes back to, well, number one, me having a real ridiculous dedication and passion to the things that I'm actually teaching. Like, I genuinely know, like I've seen it for myself. I've seen it for so many of my friends and my peers and my students. Like, I've seen that putting the attention into these things, putting the attention into figuring out what makes me unique out of the complex weirdo humans that we are. What are the things that are going to make me stand out? And also, who are the people that I'm trying to attract? Who are the people that I get along with the most? We see creatively and collaboratively, eye to eye. They're making the kind of music that makes me just so fucking excited to do revision notes, like that's the goal. And it's like, okay, how do I build the bridge between them and the things about me that they're going to find the most endearing and exciting and important and valuable? So like, I've seen that works. And because of that, like, that's sorry, but like,
Okay.
that's why, as if you can't tell, I'm a little excited about this. But that's like why I care so much and why I do it. But like the how I do it ultimately comes down to a very deep rooted philosophy that I have about education, and I've felt this way from the time I was teaching, drum set to 8-year-olds, to drum set to professionals, to, mixing students that like have bigger credits than me, and like, which is also crazy. But that deep rooted philosophy that if I can't explain something, if I can't explain a simple concept to 10 different people with 10 different sets of experiences, with 10 different sets of goals, with 10 different ability levels, if I can't explain it to all of them in a way that makes sense, then I don't understand it nearly as deeply as I think I do. And I shouldn't be teaching it. And I should
Absolutely.
put my time into figuring that shit out before I start teaching it. So I think that's one of the reasons why I try to say these things that I do feel are so deeply foundationally important to anybody trying to grow a meaningful career as a producer or an engineer, is because I can't just say it one way over and over again, because some people are going to get it and some people are not. And the people that do get it are going to get annoyed with me, and the people that don't get it are going to get annoyed with me. But if I can phrase it in different ways and like make different analogies, different metaphors, and ways that help them to just maybe even hear the same thing from a different perspective, or maybe finally after the fourth time of me trying to explain it, if finally I say it in a way that it clicks for them, I know that the logical next step of them understanding it is going to be them testing it out themselves. And when it works for them, they're going to keep doing it. And when they keep doing it and they start making these deeper connections with artists, they're getting, they're happier with the clients that they're working with. They're not just making more money, but they're getting more creatively fulfilled in the process. They're going to be making better art. They're going to be making cooler songs. So like the end result of that is so worth it for me to, go through the endless hours of editing YouTube videos, which drives me crazy still. And like going to the trouble of trying to figure out how to say the same thing 100 different ways, because I want to make sure that I want to be able to explain these things that I find so deeply, deeply necessary. I need to be able to explain it to anybody that I meet and make them realize why it's so important so they can apply it for themselves. That was my rant. I'm sorry. Okay.
I love it. No, don't be sorry about anything. I want to recap one thing and just ask you point blank, like, how do you make the world? I mean, you already answered this a little bit, but like, how do you make the world a better place, and the people that you work with specifically, how do you like improve the quality of their lives?
By helping them to say no more. I think that's really it. It's helping them to get the confidence to say no, and to have the try to think of how to phrase this in a nice way, but like to help them realize that we're all mortal and we don't have a lot of time here. And no matter how many songs you work on, it's a finite number. And if you're going to be spending your time working with clients you hate because it pays, and you don't put the effort into like getting better clients and people that you actually enjoy doing it, like that's not a life that I want to live, and it's not a life that I want to see people live. And I know that sounds very like healing crystals-y, but I mean, maybe that comes from my time as an inpatient at the mental hospital. Maybe that's why I have this drive to get people to realize that they don't have to be stuck with what they're stuck with. They don't have to be stuck with word of mouth. I think that's kind of the underlying thing that too many people do. It's like they rely on word of mouth, and it's not even necessarily a reliance. It's a being stuck with it because they don't make the changes to be proactive and to try to take the reins of it.
With our film company, we always said, don't work with assholes. Like that's our number one rule, is like, we don't work with assholes because assholes are friends with other assholes, and they're going to give you referrals to other assholes. So it's like, just work with people that you like on projects that inspire you. And even when, I mean, like even when finances are tough, like you've got to be careful about what you're taking on, and what you're doing.
Because
I want to entertain this idea with you. This is very fresh, and this is the first time that this would be publicly stated in any way. But I have this idea in this crazy world of AI, where we have AI helping and creating content and art for people across all different mediums, with complex rules about how those models that make generative AI models that are creating art, how they were trained, who owns the copyright, how is that sellable, how does that work in the world of music supervisors trying to place things for film, and how do we have a site for, and this is where I'm going, is the site I'm working on right now, is the idea of certifying art, where you could go in and certify that you made it. Here's how you made it. It was human made all the way through. Clarify, like if you did use generative AI in any form, like for example, on this, if I clean up the audio for this podcast using Adobe Podcast, that's generative AI. I could clarify that. But I didn't use this to help write our script, right? Like, so
how is that generative? How is that generative AI? Like, what is it generating?
It's taking samples of your voice and it's regenerating your voice for you, basically. And you'll get that, because if you
Oh,
on the little blips, it'll be like, it'll like say weird words sometimes because it's generative.
oh, but
So it's not large language model style generative AI, but it is trained model,
oh
generative
wait,
AI.
I've never used the Adobe podcast. I guess I'm asking because I'm not familiar with the Adobe podcast like process. So like,
Dude,
what is
it's
it generating?
wicked good. It is regenerating an EQ'd and compressed version of your voice that sounds like you, and it is you, and it's creatively identical to what your intentions were, while removing like all the stupid room echo and background noise. And for example, I'm not saying anything against you, but I don't like having the SM7B in my face. So I would like to have remote, like I've got a NTG3 up here.
What's wrong with having an SM7 in your face?
Nothing. And for clarity for everybody, I'm actually recording this on my MacBook Pro microphone because we couldn't get the interface to work without glitches. But when we have two of the NTG3s in the room, you're hearing each other's voices. So there's a little bit of this like roominess that shows up that Adobe Podcast can wipe out. So it's a better experience for the people on the other side. But that process has technically generative AI in it, which was trained on some data somewhere, somehow, and we don't know, right? So my point of the site is to have a site where you can go clarify. And like, if you are a human-made only content person, which most of the artists that I know and friends are right now, then go champion that and be like, I made this all myself. I did not use generative AI. But if you used Midjourney for your album art and fans are wondering about it, like, give them the ability to go there. So what I have built so far is a tool that allows you to go create a certificate. You can go back and you can verify the certificate and see the information. And what I'm working on right now is taking the ability to timestamp your project files to show what was actually included within that, and then write that to a ledger that is perfect and can't be broken on the blockchain. So like, you can take your information and say timestamped. It's like better, quote unquote, than copyright. That's not legal advice, but like giving the ability to be like, this is what it was. This is how the sound was created. I can prove that there weren't samples, future proofing it, writing that cryptographically to the blockchain. So, and I hate to say blockchain because I feel like it's such an overused word, but the intention is that it's time stamped and not fallible. Yeah.
Very over my head.
Yeah. I mean, the goal, like, I think about, here's my intention really when it comes down to it. How do you make money off of art? Like, if you make money off of art in like from a worker standpoint to help create someone else's art, you can do that. But you have to own copyright. And if you own copyright, then you can then delegate that to somebody else to go sell it, like a sync agent or a music supervisor can then actually take your art and sell it legally. But if you have any samples or any type of generative AI that was trained on data that you don't know that they had rights to train it on, then you start to get into a muddy gray space. And a music supervisor's job in particular is to place content in a way that they know is legally cleared. I mean, most of their job is just making sure people know how to spell PRO or something, like they're trying to make sure that people are like buttoned up on their samples and their connections. And so this is all theoretical because I'm the person that like dives into trying to make sure I understand every corner of the earth before I'd step into the space. I did that with the podcast. It took me like 9 months of just testing my systems to make sure that I understood how it worked. My song, like I sent you, it's like, that's literally the first song that I've mixed and produced and finished in like 3.5 years of being in Nashville. Cause every little step was like, wait, how do I, like, what is gain staging? What is this? Oh, okay, now that the song's done, how do I register? Where do I collect all my money domestically and globally? And so like, I've gone down all of these deep rabbit trails. And the thing I'm running up against right now, and I feel like there's a problem upcoming, is this collision between generative AI's freedom and giving artists freedom to create freely and make things that really inspire them and inspire other people, with a legal issue of like, how do you monetize art that was created but isn't paying the copyright holder? So
Yeah, I mean, I guess I know for myself, like I think there's, oh boy, there's so yeah, it's an interesting. I'll start off by saying this. You may have to like chop out that. You're gonna have to have the AI chop out what I just started by saying there. But I will. I think one of the interesting things that I found about my own life of late is that I definitely don't understand a lot of the stuff going under the hood for AI, but I am deeply fascinated by it. And I'm deeply fascinated by AI while living in Amish country. And I think there's something wonderfully weird and unique that not enough people are going to experience, where it's like living in a very rural area where there's a whole religion of people that is like a very large population here, where the whole thing is actively like not using technology, not doing this. And like, there's very few places that you can go when you're like a little kid and when you're an adult and it looks the same. Like there's always like new strip malls or, new developments or whatever. But like driving through Amish country, like I didn't grow up here, but I grew up like an hour away from here and we used to come camping down here quite a bit. And there's so little has actually changed. And I think that it's such a weird dichotomy, or I don't know if that's the right word, but like this weird juxtaposition of when I would like drive to the college to teach a class, listening to podcasts about like developments in AI while driving through cornfields and getting stuck behind a horse and buggy. So I think I have kind of a weird, visceral relationship with that.
yeah,
When it comes to, the generative AI aspects of it, like it's a tricky one. And I think one of the reasons why I'm glad that I started focusing on the things that I focus on as an educator and as an engineer, like with the branding and the messaging and like really focusing on trying to build that connection with an artist, is that if really like I would rather take the very like doom and gloom or the doom and gloom sort of like mentality of like, yeah, we're all replaceable. Mixed engineers are going to be replaced in a couple of years, whatever. I would rather assume that that's going to happen and figure out, okay, well, what is it that I can do? What's about me that couldn't be replaced by AI? And it's that the trust building, it's like the relationship, it's the ability to make the artist feel comfortable and vulnerable and to push them and to like poke them in ways that gets them to create something in a way that they maybe have never tried before. And then if I can focus on those things, if I can focus on what is it about me that creates that kind of a relationship and that sort of like positioning of myself, then like if the AI replaces my mixing, I'm still going to be okay. And I'm still going to, and if anything, I'm still going to really enjoy what I do because I'm, like in a way, the technology and like the technique of mixing and like the act of mixing is like just a vehicle for me to be able to build these relationships and make this great art.
yep,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Well, and you're the only you. Like you will
yeah,
always only be the only you, no matter how much we sampled your voice and you talking and your mannerisms and all that stuff. There might be a believable version of you in like not too long using some of the amazing tools out there, right? But it's not you, and it's not your experience that people get to enjoy. And you being able to share what your knowledge is that comes from, like not only your knowledge from the scenario, but like what the room smelled like when you walked in, like these
yeah,
impact your decisions and what makes you unique. And I think that's, to me, like two things that you said kind of trigger what my intention is behind this site. One is you're like, I don't like, I'm intrigued by AI and I love using it, or, like that kind of an idea. But I'm not like, I don't really know what's going on under the hood. That's like number one that I think is like kind of part of the point, is that like we're up against a pretty weird legal potential. Like um, I honestly, I think that we're going to have case law that kind of excuses all of the AIs that were trained on all of this data without permission. That's my guess, is that over the next couple of years will be cleared. But also, like, because your fingerprint matters in your art, and your experience in that matters, like, it's more fun to, like, if I'm that nerd that likes to know that it was done by a human that actually did it, it's more fun and exhilarating to listen to. If you listen to Celine Dion sing and you know that her vocal cords made that sound, you're like,
Mhm.
holy dear gosh. But if that's a generative AI like model, it doesn't bring the same, like, I'm not trying to guilt people into enjoying music that was made with AI, right? Like enjoy photos that were made with AI, music that was made with AI. If it emotionally moves you, be moved. Great. But what I'm
Yeah.
seeking for, or what I'm seeking, is the ability to know, like, and encourage people to openly state that they made it all by themselves or not. Not I did start the site off initially calling it noaiartwork.com, because to me, it's like the importance is for people to know how the human was involved with it. But I realized how, thanks to my wife's insight on that too, like how unhelpful that is, because I love AI. I use ChatGPT all the time. I don't know how to code safely. Like, I don't know how to code, period. But like as I'm developing this site, I need to make sure that I know how to get stuff in there securely, and like all the things. And so like AI is very helpful. So I don't want to be a bigot in how I'm communicating what the point is. But I think when it really comes down to it, it's like being transparent about who you are
Yeah.
and what you do, so that people can enjoy the artifacts of you and your soul being in existence in this life.
Yeah. I think for me, the most interesting stuff that AI can do, it's when it's things that a human couldn't do. Like I think it's not as, and I think maybe that kind of goes back to maybe it's like the next step after what you were saying about how people feel that excitement when it's something that, like, oh yeah, a human did it and a human did all of it. And I think it's when it is something that is maybe generative, but it's something that, like, couldn't have physically been done by a human, and the only way that it could have been done was by a human prompting this technology and using this technology as a tool to create something that otherwise was not possible. That's
Yeah.
cool as shit. I think it's the issue for me, but maybe where I draw the line is more like when it's somebody that is creating something with AI that is meant to look and pass as human made, or pass as uh
Yeah.
authentic. You know what I mean? Authentic. I think so. That's it's the intention and the way that it's framed and presented.
I agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like there's no moral issues when you like see a beautiful, or like let's say the cute picture of the baby duck that's like extraordinarily cute, like, and
Mm.
next to the kitten that you're like, what was that? That's like the cutest picture I've ever seen, and then you realize that it's fake or whatever. Like, I hate that side of it. Here I am in an ADHD moment. I had a thought and I forgot. Here we go.
It's okay.
There's
It's
another.
okay.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I I
Dang it.
I I,
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, like, I do. I'm gonna go back to the like the we're gonna be replaced
Oh,
idea.
yes.
I would rather assume that AI is going to replace my the need for my technical skills, and then have AI be a big disappointment and, like, not be able to do it well,
Right.
versus me putting my head in the sand and assuming that, like, you know humans are gonna not use AI, and then a couple years go by and I realize that I never adapted and never developed the skills to, like, really separate myself.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm such a hard ass about, when I'm helping my students to work on their website or make content or whatever it is, when they're trying to build that bridge between themselves and their ideal clients. It's like, that's why I never talk about, I very, very rarely ever talk about gear of any sort, or talk about, like, mixing techniques. And, like, I don't have, like, there's no photos of gear on my website.
Yep.
And I think what's interesting, and hopefully, if anybody's skeptical about it, I hope this helps, is that back in 2020, when I ended up doing over 300 mixes for clients, like without using Sound Better, like this is all like without a platform like that. I didn't have any pictures of my gear on the website then either. I didn't have any,
No.
I didn't have anything like that. It's not like even my profile photo is not me sitting in front of a console, my finger on a fader. It's not,
Yep.
because like that stuff, it's like plugins are getting better, things are getting cheaper. Like the technology is getting easier and easier to use, and the ability to run that technology is a lot less valuable and less marketable of a skill than it was in the 50s. And I think if we put all of our focus on those intangibles that are not the techniques, that are not the hardware, the software, whatever it is, putting our focus on that, not just the marketing focus, but also our intentionality and the way that we try to grow as professionals and as creatives, I think that's going to be the thing that actually leads to the longevity. Because I mean, like, I'm a bit of a, wet blanket maybe about AI, but like it's not going away. Like there's always going to be things that make it more complicated to figure out how to keep it legal and to do
Yeah.
those things. So if I don't have the brain power or the experience to like actively figure out how to do the regulations and things, then at least what I can do is try to figure out how do I make sure that the things that will remain valuable to humans, like
Yeah.
that human connection, the smell of the studio, like you said, the
Yep.
the ability to make somebody feel vulnerable and create a sense of urgency and all these things, like that's what I'm going to focus on. That's what I'm going to try to make sure that I do. That's why, back to, why am I driven to teach the things I teach and talk the way that I do and do the things? It's like I want to protect, I want to protect people from that. I don't want to
Yep.
call it that inevitability, but
Yep.
yeah.
But I think that like that's the what you're saying is like, yeah, you're gonna show up and do your human thing and keep doing your human thing and let the AI help assist you in being able to do that more, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I from my end, I think um, AI has this massive potential and already is like leveling the playing field for people. Like, I have had this idea about this website for a year and a half, and it obviously AI has been around since, during that time, but like I don't have $2 million of development budget to put all this stuff together, and I think AI allows for such a significant amount of progress for people. Like, okay, so for example, like if you're a musician but you're not a lyricist and you like have an idea for songs, like you can use Chat GPT to write you lyrics, like or something along those lines. I'm not here to discuss the ethics of it. I'm saying more the utility.
Yeah.
Having the ability to like I'm a nerd and I want to learn how to mix, and I'm very much in the beginning of that journey for me. But
Yeah.
but I want to know how and I want to know why and like all the nerdy everything, but there's also a part of me that for certain projects, like I don't hate the idea of being able to like hit the mix button and it sounds pretty dang good, like especially for like quick run like library stuff if I needed to get that done or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's like I think having or again, Adobe Podcast, my gosh, like the ability for that to clean up the way that it does in scenarios like we have the, most advanced stuff, except for the thing you told me, the Revive, DX stuff or whatever. Like, but like we have really advanced machine learning ways of cleaning stuff up, and nothing even touches Adobe Podcast for quality for me that I've used, and that is something we didn't have 5 years ago. So it helps us be able to film a better shot because it's in a noisier environment and still get a really, really good audio out of it, where we would be
Which all
like, yeah,
which ultimately allows you to tell a more engaging story,
exactly.
help to get a deeper idea across, and potentially make a bigger change.
Yep. Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that's the good and the bad of it. I think I think there are too many people only looking at the negatives, and there are too many people only looking at the positives. And I think it's a question that we should be asking ourselves is like, well, how can we use it as a tool to make things better for us and for society and for art, without, throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And I think that's a struggle that, AI has implications that go much deeper than most people even begin to think about.
Well, that anybody even knows.
And
like
anybody
people
knows,
at the leader, like the lead of it, have no idea where this is going, and they're all saying that.
Yeah, and people will make their assumptions now, and they make their decisions now, and then they just stop trying to learn about it, and they stop.
Yeah.
That's I think I don't know, the dangerous aspect is like just putting your head. It's just we're so overwhelmed, we're so bombarded just with politics and with life and technology that like it's very calming to put our head in the sand. Yeah. Especially going back to the ADHD thing, if we're already distracted by enough stuff, it's just like this is one more thing to existentially dread about at night.
Right. Yeah.
So it is very
humans. Yeah, I was gonna say, and humans excel at underestimating the impacts of technology too. Like we have never done a good job of being like, in 20 years, this technology is gonna fill in the blank. Like the most absurd, extreme examples are still underestimates of how it impacts the future. So,
well, it's either a total underestimation, or it's like a Jetsons thing where we think by the year 1980 we're going to have like jetpacks.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I mean, I am riding my hoverboard usually, like from Back to the Future. I mean, I still am. But I have a question for you about students. Yes. And so aside from the no thing that you teach them, what are some like the top 1 to 3 common themes that it's the thing that they need to overcome, the thing that they're afraid of, the thing that they don't understand, or their confidence?
Just two things. I think the two big ones. First is that you have a brand, whether you realize it or not, because your brand is not your logo. It's not your website. There's a really great quote by Marty Neumeier, who's like a branding OG. But that, your brand is not a logo. Like it's not your color scheme. It's the customer's gut feeling about you. And because of that, everybody has a different gut feeling about you. Like I use the example that, you have a different gut feeling about me than my wife does. My wife has a different gut feeling about me than my daughter does. My daughter has a different gut feeling about me than the barista at Starbucks does. You have a different gut feeling about me now than you had at the beginning of this conversation. Right? Like it might be nuanced, but it's true. So really what branding does, what marketing does, it's an intentional shaping of the gut feelings that you want people to have about you. And it's not that you just don't have a brand until you decide to start caring. Even if you don't care about it, people are still going to have first impressions. People are still going to have that gut feeling about you. So needing to take control of that and be thoughtful about it and intentional about it is something that I don't want to say I open a lot of eyes when it comes to that part, but that's just something that we don't think about, we don't realize, because it's just so ingrained in being a human. So, and the dog's barking now. The ADHD tests in this, it's so meta. And she's just going bonkers.
Love it.
So yeah, we have to be thoughtful about, not just what do we want them to feel, but what can we do to help them to feel that way. So that's a big one. And then the other one, this is more like a music specific one, but it's that your niche does not have to be your niche does not have to be based on genre. And usually that's like a kind of oh my God, this dog just shut up. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can, I don't know if Apple Podcasts is going to cut this out or not. She's just
No, it doesn't
Yes, guys
matter. It's
across the
fine.
street.
It's fine. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it might actually cut it out now that I think about it.
Yeah. Hopefully.
But you're saying like the Rick Rubin style of like your niche doesn't have to be your genre, right? Like he has a niche, but it's not a genre.
It's not a genre. And I would say even like music, like, I mean, I would even start, uh, I don't want to get too deep into like the three niche circles that I get into, but I'll just say like most people, when they first think about what their niche is, there's, they're usually thinking about the musical style. They're thinking about what genre they are. Like they do metal, they do rock, they do hip hop, they do EDM, whatever. And it doesn't work because it's very limiting to us because in the post iPod shuffle world, like we all listen to a lot of music. You know, musicians in general have always listened to a pretty broad, like a broader than the general listener amount of music and styles of music. But then, especially in recent years, like recent years meaning like the past like 20 some, like even the general public listens to a very wide variety of music. And us as musicians, we've gone even wider. So trying to pick a genre to, or even like three genres to really like narrow down what we love working on, it's kind of a fool's errand.
Yeah.
And also artists don't, very rarely
Makes
do
me feel
artists even look
sick.
at themselves like that. Yeah, and artists don't
Like
like if you ask an artist to describe in one genre what kind of music they make, they're going to squirm too because they listen to a lot of different music. They take inspiration from a lot of different kinds of music. So for a lot of reasons it doesn't make any sense for us to try to describe ourselves and
yeah.
what we do, what we're passionate about based on a genre. So I talk about the difference between a genre niche and a style niche. So your style niche is going to be the underlying characteristics in the music that you love that is not necessarily dependent upon a genre. So the examples that I use, I love catchy, prominent, catchy, prominent vocals, massive rhythm sections, and lots of little tiny nerdy nuances that nobody listens to or nobody notices until they've heard the song 10 times, right? So some pop has that, some pop doesn't. Some country has that, some country doesn't. Some rock, some metal, some hip hop, some electronics, whatever it is. It's not a genre thing. It's just a musical characteristics thing. So that helps me to be able to better communicate to the people that I want to work with that are making the kinds of music that I love. What is it that I love? So when I describe myself as like, well, these are like, I work best when I'm working with artists that love these things. It doesn't matter what genre they make. If they also love, catchy, prominent vocals, massive rhythm sections, and lots of little nerdy textures, then we're going to get along.
Right.
Right.
That's
Like,
awesome. Yeah.
and in a way, it's like, I'm able to be like fairly specific about what it is. I'm not just being like, oh, I like catchy songs, like
Right.
I'm able to be pretty specific about it, but without it narrowing and like excluding
And
people.
you didn't start there, and that's malleable, right? Like so like you
Yeah.
didn't start there because you didn't know, and now that you've done enough of it, you realize what those mechanisms are, so you can teach people how to find it for themselves.
Yeah.
And also, if you get bored of that, there's no shame because this thing called life is short, like you say, to change what the hell you're doing
Yeah.
and find redefine
Yeah.
yourself. But yeah,
Yeah. And I like to look at it like going on a cross country road trip, right? Like if you get in the car and you pull up a GPS and you put in the destination, I'm over on the East Coast. If I put in, I don't know, like the Santa Monica Pier or something. And all I do is there is a Santa Monica Pier, right? I'm not just making,
sure.
I'm sure. Okay. Let's pretend that there is.
Yeah, I can see it in my head.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a really great hot dog stand on Hollywood Boulevard. I don't know why that's where I'm going to be going. I'm going cross country to eat a hot dog. There have been worse reasons to go cross country. So anyway, okay, ADHD, la la la, showing your face here. Let's say that I put that hot dog stand into my GPS and I just followed the GPS and I only stop to get gas when it's directly off of the highway and I do not allow myself to do anything unnecessary and I just go straight there. If I do that, I am missing the entire fucking point of a road trip. However, if I just say, I'm going to drive towards California and eventually get over to that, hopefully get to that hot dog stand, and I just get in my car and I just start going, it's very unlikely that I'm ever going to get there. And if I do, it's going to take me way, 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 way longer. And it's going to cost me way, way, way more time and money and effort. And I'm going to miss out on a lot of other really great things. So the way that I try to look at it is, if I making my focus as, catchy vocals, big drums, nerdy textures, like that's the thing I'm aiming for. That's the hot dog stand. But when something else comes along that maybe doesn't necessarily fit that description, but I'm just excited about doing it, I look at that as like, the world's largest ball of yarn, or like a cool restaurant off the side that you see. Like, if you don't take those little pit stops to stretch your legs and like see the sights and then get back on the road, then you're missing the whole point. But I think it's about being intentional and being able to say, that thing's a little bit too far off the highway. I don't think it's worth it for like 45 minutes, each way just to, go look at Andre the Giant's birthplace or something. I mean, I don't think he was born in the States, but I'm bad at examples today, but so I can make
Santa
that
Monica Pier.
yeah. So I can make that judgment call of, is this something that is like fun enough to be worth it for me? Is it valuable enough to me as a person and to like me as a creative to like want to veer off of my path? And if it is, cool, let's go do it. And if it's not, then nope, we're just gonna point to the website and just be like, no, that's not really, that's outside of my wheelhouse. Like, I'm not really it's not like, hey, your song sucks, I don't want to do it. It's like, oh, that's not really, where my strengths are. Like, I think you should go talk to so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then you're in control of it. So you can have your ADHD flare-ups and go do that, short film if you want. You can
and
do
be
that.
Excited about that. That's what part of what makes you you.
Yeah, and you get to choose which of those little, side quests you take.
Last question. What do you appreciate about my friend Carl that needs to be for you to be reminded about down the road?
And just to be clear, you're talking about me, right?
Yeah.
Not a mutual friend
No.
that I'm forgetting
Sagan.
about.
No,
Carl Sagan. Okay.
No.
What's something that I appreciate about myself that I need to be reminded of? The fact that I somehow find a way to push through, even though I, by all accounts, probably shouldn't have. I surprise myself with my drive. I surprise myself with getting so close to the edge of giving up that like I almost feel like in a Looney Tunes cartoon where somebody like they can like run off the cliff and then they like run back onto the ground. That's how I feel sometimes about my career, where I feel like I've gone to the point where like I definitely should have just like given up by now, but somehow I managed to defy physics and like get back to solid ground. So I think I need to take a step back and appreciate that sometimes, because I don't give myself enough credit for that.
Yeah. Well, but also, what about I said last question. This is just still the same question. It's just the second half of it. What about your personality do you know other people appreciate about you? I'm trying to help find a nugget that when you're forgetting
for the gram, you're trying to find
when you're forgetting to be nice to yourself, you could remember this.
I can grow a mean beard.
Okay.
But something like
what about your character makes people show up and want to continue working with you? You know the answers. You just don't want to say them, probably.
Yeah. I think the irony is that's going to be like humility. It's like, so I don't want to say it. No, I think my willingness to be proven wrong.
I love that.
My desire to be proven wrong,
Yes.
that comes across as, or that like in practice is me always wanting to try something, even if it might not work. If I think there's a chance that like it can make the song better, I want to try it.
Yes.
And I'm okay with it sucking, and as long as we try it. So I think that might be it.
I love it. Where do people find you? I know
And
there's multiple places to talk about all of them.
yeah. Oh, I mean, the main place, I'm going to funnel everybody to one place. Come to Instagram at Carl Bahner, CarlBahner. It's probably going to be in the show notes. I don't know why I spelled it out. But come there, say hi. I like to talk to people. I like to make new friends, especially if there's anything that I can do to, help you find more fun people to make better art with, then I want to do that. So I'd say go there. And then from that point, I can point you in another direction if it's like, oh, cool YouTube video about this topic that you're talking about that you find really interesting. I'm happy to point you, introduce you to people, whatever it is. But I think the first step, come to Instagram, come say hi. My DMs are open. I like talking to people.
Love it. Dude, thanks for doing this. I'm glad we finally got it done.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm really excited to hear how you end up chopping up the awkward intro. that didn't happen in the intro.
We'll just own it, like it's
Yeah.
good.